Hello, everybody. It is February 25th. This is Julie. It's me. And this is just going to be very short. I don't know when I'm going to post it. I made some videos like last week when the VPN was down, and honestly, I don't foresee those seeing the light of day. If I randomly stumble on them and I post them, it's going to be very late. So anything I post is going to be from today onward. And plus, those videos were really random, just so you know. But it's going to be very short, and then I'll probably do two more segments and then I'll splice them together. I have to make a video today for my learners about my hometown of Santa Fe. So I might go ahead and just throw that in there just because I have to do it anyway. Um, but we'll see. I'll do whatever I got to do. So here's the update. So as we see, the Shanghai color has gone up. And of course, all across China, all the colors have increased. And Hubei and Wuhan are still the biggest. But we're looking at 68 new deaths in Hubei. And the total number of deaths is 2,700. We're almost to 3,000 deaths. I think it's been about 2 months. And that's crazy. But we're looking at this right here. This is why I decided to do a video. So we know about Japan. Now, the reason Japan's number is so high, 851, is because of that cruise ship. So at this point right now, some people have been evacuated. If you're in the U.S., you know the controversy about how supposedly Trump wasn't told they were going to evacuate these U.S. citizens and bring them to the U.S. Um, I tend not to listen to the media a lot because they hate Donald Trump. Um, he may not have been told because it's an I don't know. I'm not going to say it's an inconsequential thing, but these are American citizens that need to be brought home. And to leave them somewhere instead of bringing them home and safely quarantining them at home in America, that's wrong. I'm sorry, it's wrong. So I completely 100% applaud America for flying home the U.S. citizens. And like I think Australia and the UK are both doing that as well or have done that. Um, it's very important. And of course they're going to handle this correctly. I don't know all the details. I don't know if they flew them on a military plane or whatnot, but they didn't fly them commercial. They flew them knowing that it's a quarantine situation. Then they get them to the States and they're going to quarantine them in the military bases or wherever these quarantines are set up. And it's so, I mean, it's being handled appropriately. But the big thing is what happened in South Korea. Now, I'm not going to go into all the articles because the news has already talked about all this. You can look it up. But the outbreak in South Korea that has now risen the amount of confirmed cases above Japan, making South Korea the one that has the most cases outside of China, um, and Italy too. We've seen this increase in cases, and and it's because of infected people being there, and because you can be infected with this virus and have no idea. Um, we still don't even know, honestly, if you could legitimately be infected and never show symptoms of it. Like you could be a carrier and never get the fever, never get a cough. I've got to tell you, like, there's been a few times here and there when I've had a cough. Um, a few weeks ago, it was scarier to get that cough because I had been walking around without a mask. I was in Sam's Club walking around that building when this thing first was starting at the beginning of Chinese New Year, and I didn't have a mask and I didn't care. Um, but just all this stuff that I had done in the few weeks before I was really taking this seriously and the lockdowns really kind of started happening. Um, it's scary to get that little bit of a cough, and I don't know, our bodies are weird, so every once in a while you'll get like a little bit of a raise in temperature, you'll feel a little flushed, a little feverish. And I mean, the fear just plays into that. It's you're sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, I probably have it, and what if I die?" But it's to be taken seriously. So if someone just gets like a mild reaction like that, so they're carrying this virus and they just get a mild fever, they just get a little bit of a cough, and then it goes away, and they never really feel sick. They never feel like they need to go to a doctor. So they're walking around as a virus carrier and spreading it. You add to this that in most other countries, including the US and especially the US, we are not big on masks. Now we're big on mass hysteria because I was going to say, or mass hysteria, but we're not. We're really big on mass hysteria. We're it's very easy to become hysterical. But I can remember with the bird flu, the Asian bird flu, and the SARS. I can remember the mocking that went on about how the Chinese people were constantly wearing masks. Um, I never was a part of that, and I was just I'd see it on social media and whatnot, and I just keep scrolling because that's what I do. Now, being in these situations, when I see like horribly bad fake news that's causing people to make insulting comments about the Chinese people and their culture, I'll step in and say something like, "This is fake news. You need to knock it off." Um, but I've never contributed to the racism except in my inaction, because as we know, all that it takes for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. So I inadvertently contribute because I do nothing, but I never contributed by doing anything negative to this. I don't know why I'm telling you that, but just felt like I needed to be said. Um, but what happened was, like, these people are carrying this disease, I mean, this virus inside them, and they went to a church. Now, whether this church is a cult or not, that's irrelevant. Essentially, this is a pretty big church. Um, and apparently that, along with a couple other little pockets, is what it caused this explosion in South Korea of this virus. And it is not changing anytime soon. And with Italy, I don't remember if it was a marketplace, if it was just like a mall kind of a situation with them. But the thing is, like, here in China, it's to the place now, like, if you walk somewhere without a mask, like, I walked out of my apartment to go run downstairs for something and forgot my mask. And at the elevator, two people were walking out, and I smiled at them, and I'm like, oh crap, I don't have my mask. And I had to run back to my apartment and grab it. Um, that's happened to me maybe 3 times where I've started to go downstairs and I get to the elevator or very near it, and then I'm like, oh, I don't have my mask on. Um, it's not, it is habit for me, but not full blown habit yet. But like that's the thing. So like here in China, on any given day, you can walk around and see like a lot of the population wearing a mask because of the pollution and other things. That's not common in other countries. So if you, it's a stigma in America. Let me put it that way. If I walked into Starbucks in America before living in China and all this, because even now, like if this hadn't happened, I got back to America and I saw a person with a mask on, I'd have a familiarity to it because of China. So I wouldn't really think much of it. But before that, I would see you see someone walk in with a mask and you're like, "Oh my gosh, get over yourself." You know, especially during cold and flu season, you're like, "Come on, dude." Okay? Because that's just the way we are in America, or I am. I shouldn't speak for everybody, but that's the way I am. Like I was very pompous and assured of being untouchable essentially. And I'm not saying like bad things never happened. I never got sick, blah 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 blah, but uh you I would kind of look at that as like an overreaction. And that's how I kind of looked at this. But seeing things as I do now on this other side of it, like in January, I felt like everything was just kind of like, okay, you guys are overreacting. Now, and especially looking at the numbers in Italy and South Korea, and like I said, Japan, the only reason I don't lump them into this is because this was like a ship of virus coming to their port and staying in that ship. And I know there's some of these cases, some of the, I think it's like 100 or something of the Japan cases weren't on the ship. However, the bulk of they would be way lower. The bulk of their infections are due to this cruise ship. So that was a contained viral thing. Could you imagine if they had not contained the viral thing? Granted, I don't quite agree with how they contained it, but could you imagine if they hadn't contained it? That's crazy to think about. So when you really look at these numbers, I think it gives us a perspective as to what exactly we're looking at when it comes to this virus. Because the explosion in South Korea and the explosion in Italy, people are starting to take the steps to shut down public gatherings, which China did, even in cities like Shanghai, where, yeah, the numbers are a little bit higher. Let's get up here and look. We now have 335 confirmed cases in Shanghai. But look at how many have recovered. I mean, 80%. So Shanghai's doing very well. Some of the other places are doing excellent because they have smaller numbers, but still, that's awesome. Um, but we're looking at this, uh, Okay, so South Korea right now, they're only at 2% because they had such an explosion. And you have to look at how long it takes for the virus to actually be. It's taking like, it takes like a week or longer for these people to be able to get out of hospitals and stuff. Um, Now, granted, these are confirmed cases. So some of these people are not necessarily sick to the point that they're going to need to be in the hospital. But that explosion was within days. Like this South Korea thing is literally like 3 days, 4 days. So, I mean, we're looking at the fact that most travel is essentially just done. Like you cannot travel. Um, my driver's license is gonna expire, and New Mexico being what it is, I wrote the DMV and I said, "Can I get a temporary license for a year?" Or my other question is, do I have to like retake everything if my license expires? And all they wrote was like, "We don't offer your temporary license. We only offer 90-day ones or whatever." And I'm like, "But you didn't answer my questions." I can't stand. I can't stand many government employees because they don't do their job. And I'm sorry, and I don't mean like but they're just there. They just, and I know I'm not saying this like in a negative way, but if you're one of these where you're like, not my problem. So like the phone, and I'm digressing, I'm sorry, but like the phone rings and they ask you a question, you're like, I'm not even going to try to answer this question. I'm just going to pawn you off on someone else. These are the kind of, I can't deal with that. And I experienced it. That's why I know it exists. I'm not just saying this because I'm annoyed right now. I once had, when I worked for the city government, the local government, I once had someone the same person transfer to me 4 different times. And I finally told this person, because I was trying to help them figure out where they needed to be. And they just kept pawning them back off on me. And I finally told this person, here's my direct line. I'm going to transfer you to this department. If they tell you anything, you feel like they're giving you the runaround, if you feel like they're not, then call me back and we'll figure something else out. Because they were literally just being passed off because no one wanted to take the time to work with these people. And I'm like, it was a streets question. It was something about a stop sign or something about a curb or whatever. And they kept transferring them to the fire department. I'm like, this is not a fire department issue. I'm sorry. I digress. Anyway, back to the point. So I looked into a flight. You're like, why are you talking about this? Flights. Guys, I'm surprised that my brain will come back after I segue off onto a rabbit trail. But here you go. I looked into a flight, and there was one for like 1,000 kwai to get to LA. And there's no flights to Albuquerque. And the reason for that is the 14-day quarantine. So while I could fly into Albuquerque for 1,000 kwai, the return flight was way more expensive. And I'd have a 14-day quarantine on both sides. So it would not do me any good. Because my thought was, if I could fly into Albuquerque, I could jump in, get my license renewed, fly back out, come home, do my 14-day, and be at work. Not going to happen. And plus, I could buy that airfare, show up at the airport, and it's canceled, and it defeats the purpose anyway. And people are telling me that they're having a really hard time getting their money back from flights and have been told they'll probably have to wait months to get their money back, which is ridiculous. But that's what people are facing. Sorry, I hit my bells. But anyway, there you go. So this explosion in South Korea, and like I said, we're not supposed to live in a state of paranoia. So I don't expect the world to have shut down their public gatherings and whatnot. And I think that's kind of the point. Like, we're looking at what happened with China and we're saying, like, they could have handled this better, blah, 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 blah. But let's look, like I said, the 2 points. Let's look at Japan. Japan knew this ship came in with the confirmed cases of the coronavirus. And what they did was they locked down the ship. No one could get off of the ship. They quarantined the people. They had to stay in their rooms. Many would refuse to do so. Now, I said in another video that I guaranteed that was the Americans. And I'm pretty sure it was more than just the Americans, because when you think about the ship, most of the cabins are interior cabins, which means there's no access to the outside at all. So what these cabins look like, they're just like a little room, very small. And you have a bathroom, you have running water, you have beds, you have a place to sit down. It's not like you're in this little horrible, you have a desk, it's like a hotel room, but a small hotel room. And then from there, you have a curtain in your room. And when you open the curtain, you have like a fake porthole. This is not necessarily standard. This is just an example of a ship I was in. So you have like a fake porthole that looks like you have a window, but you don't. And they do that because of seasickness and claustrophobia. So they give you the illusion of a window when you don't have a window. Okay. So these people are trapped in their rooms. If you're one of the ones, I've been on two cruises, one in high school, in which I had a room like that I shared with three other teenage girls. We would have been stuck in that room, the four of us, together, hours on end, with nothing but a TV and whatever we brought to entertain us. We wouldn't even have a window to look out to get fresh air, nothing. And I don't know about the ventilation system in there, because if they had like the AC running, was that spreading the virus? Did they have to have like things shut down? Did they have to give them like little mobile fans? Like, what did they do? You know what I mean? I don't know. I need to get through this though, because I'm taking much longer than I wanted to. So, on my second cruise, my mom and I went on a Disney cruise. And since we've been wanting to do that forever, we made sure to get a veranda. So we had like the slightly larger room, and it had a little balcony. Okay. That is survivable if you're quarantined to a room and you have to stay in your room. That's survivable. That's tolerable. The other one, I don't know how they were doing it. So I can understand them not wanting to leave their room, was the point there. So you're looking at Japan. They saw this incident, they saw this thing coming, and they locked it down instantly after China already had its explosion. So they knew what was going on. They knew what they had to do. Once again, I don't agree with the way they quarantined, but they quarantined. They locked it down. Their numbers are still high, but that is a cruise ship number, not a Japan continent-wide number, which could be very big of a deal. South Korea had no reason to have to lock things down. Their numbers were a lot lower before this explosion happened. They were down in the bottoms, I believe, like down here with like Canada and all that. I mean, I don't remember all the numbers, but I'm pretty sure they were pretty low. And now they're at the top. And now they're locking down. But we could not have expected South Korea or Italy to take the steps that China has taken, where they've closed up public assemblies and all of that. So this is what has happened. And it's interesting to see the explosion, because it was rumored that we were going to see that in China. And now we're still hearing we're probably not going to see this really start dying out, coming to an end until like April. And that's just really telling. So I'm just going to scroll through the rest of this real quick. They're saying that the World Health Organization, we should be prepared for the epidemic. And I think South Korea and Italy show us definitely that we need to prepare. I'm not going to tell you all to doomsday it, but go out if you're able to, and just buy yourself. I'm sorry, I have all these things popping up. Buy yourself a mask, a box of masks, and just have them. If you get sick, even if you don't know if it's the coronavirus, if you get sick, wear a mask. Protect your loved ones. Okay, I'm just gonna say that. As this thing works its way through, just be prepared for that. I'm not saying to be all doomsday and panicked. Just take steps. If I had known, I would have ordered masks a long time ago, and I would have had them here ready to go, and I wouldn't have been in the situation I'm in where I don't have a mask. And you can't do the wildlife. I don't even worry about that, because I don't follow the stock market either. But I mean, that is something to look at, because that can have really bad consequences. And then of course the things in Iraq and Iran. There's South Korea. So 60 new cases. So they call it, I guess it's technically a cult. I don't know. They're going to provide a complete list of members. Now that's scary. See, here in China, churches don't keep a list, because, they just don't. That way, if the government says, you need to give us a list of your members, they're like, we don't have any documentation of membership. And they're telling the absolute truth. They're not lying. So a total of 8 deaths. Avoid South Korea, all non-essential travel to South Korea. Jeepers, people. Let me pause this. And you're not going to even know I paused. Well, you will. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. I have to, I've been sending a text now when I get these calls. I get phone calls about, like, stuff I've ordered showing up, or food deliveries, and I can't speak Chinese. And when I try to tell them that on the phone, they're not, like, receptive to the fact that I'm speaking something they don't understand, which would tell them I can't understand what they're saying, but it doesn't matter. So I have a text message I send out now that says, I don't speak Chinese. Please do not call. You can text. So I have a Chinese message I send, and I had to do that so they wouldn't keep calling me. Moving. Or the worst thing they do is I had a package that I wasn't answering the phone, and they sent it back to the city of origin. And in China, they won't just refund you if they get the package back. So I had to like initiate a refund. And this is neither here nor there, but this is life, guys. This is what happens when I'm sitting here. Okay. Um, Fourth death on the cruise ship. That cruise ship is just... And the medics. We've had a few doctors die. We had the head of a hospital die here in China. And then, of course, the one that warned his colleagues in the beginning, we had him die. And then we had like a very young doctor. She was very young, in her 20s, I think. She died. It's pretty intense. So there's the Italy one, but I'm not sure. It doesn't quite say. The possibility of recovered patients to be reinfected is very slim. Well, that's a positive. And no significant mutation. That's good too. Oh yeah, and that bat video about bat soup. That was an old video, guys. I never watched it. I will not eat bat soup. I think bats are very cute. I think if we already had this thing about animals. I'm not going to talk about it. But point in case, the bat video was from years ago. So no, that was not the start of the situation. They're still trying to figure that out. 1 to 5% of close contacts related confirmed to be infected. North Korea quarantine. Oh yeah, the stigma. And that's true. I mean, that's so true. Like, fear can just make you do hateful and evil things. And you people just need to stop. If you're watching this video and you're not contributing to the racism that's happening and the stigmas that's happening, at least get the word out there. Use your social media and be like, look, guys, stop. Don't be jerks. Don't be jerks. Like I've said in other videos, the Chinese people are wonderful. The culture is wonderful. Are there bad people in China? Yes. Are there bad people in America? Yes. Are there bad people in Europe? Yes. So, but overall, the Chinese people and their culture are wonderful. And we may not understand and we may not agree, but it's just like in America. I don't have to agree with you for me to respect you and to like you. I don't have to understand for me to be able to support you and be there for you. And that's the same thing with China. You don't have to understand their culture. You don't have to agree with it. I don't agree with the dog meat festival, at all. It is evil. Full on evil. 100%. And, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to treat China or Chinese people like they're horrible people. Because they're not. You should see how much they love their dogs here. Like, these little dogs are running around with little jackets on, and they're all spoiled to the nines, and there's tons of dog rescues and cat rescues. Like, they take very good care of animals here. And because there's this evil pocket of just cruelty, and I mean, yeah, but it's everywhere. Like I said, there's cruelty everywhere. And yes, the people want that meat festival to stop. They're not even interested in it. We don't have control, but no connection with seafood. There you go, people. Don't worry about that. My apartment cannot even rent out to new renters right now. One of the people I was talking to here, that's what she said. Yeah, we can't take in new residents at this point. My rent is so low. I mean, you have that fleeting moment because, listen, we all want to save money. Let's not be stupid and lie to ourselves. So you have that fleeting moment. You're like, oh, they're lowering the rents for some people. However, I am getting a full check. My company's got us covered. Like I said, I've been careful with my spending. I have money to cover rent, and my rent is extremely low. And I believe all of this stuff has happened for a reason. So I'm so grateful for that. And so when it comes time for me to uh, pay my rent, I'm down to do that. I can't do it till the first. It's not like my other apartment. I have to wait till the first. But anyway, lockdown exemption. Uh, Interesting. Anyway, so I think that's, yeah, if we could get any of them. Um, Help fight the coronavirus. Okay. But yeah, so wait, we gotta consider. That's what we gotta consider. Consider is that we have all this stuff going on, but there's a lot of businesses that are closed. A lot of businesses that aren't being patronized. Um, there's people that don't know if they're getting paid, that aren't getting paid regardless, and you could go through the legislation and the legal actions to try to make it happen. But how long is that going to take? Some people have been threatened that they'll be fired, but essentially what it means is either you take leave without pay, or you make sure you've gone back to China in time to do your quarantine and be at work on time. Um, so there's a lot of stuff. In my opinion, I'm not going to go into, but we just need to keep China in our prayers. We need to remain focused on the fact that this is not yet done, and although we may be on the other side, um, we're still not out of the woods, and it's very important that we stay alert and vigilant. And like I said, that we just keep China in our prayers. And thank you so much. And this went way longer. I wanted this to be like a 15-minute video, and I like doubled that, so I'm sorry. It's because I went off on little rabbit trails, but we're back. So there you go. Hello. So it is February 26th, 2020 here in China. And so this is just the newest numbers. Um, so we're looking at total deaths are have still not hit 3,000, so that's good. So we're at 2,762. We're really close though, but recovered is up to 30,000. So that's really impressive. It's good to see those kind of numbers on the recovery. Um, but look at this. There's still 401 new cases confirmed in Hubei, um, and 52 new deaths. So I mean, it's pretty intense. Even though people want to make it um, so that it's not. They're only at a 32% recovered rate. So the reason I really opened this is because of the global changes here. So Japan was leading, as you can recall in my other videos, and then yet yesterday South Korea moved above, and now South Korea is at 1,113 cases confirmed. They're at 11 deaths. Japan is at 835 confirmed. Um, the thing is, um, majority of those, like we've said, are on the Diamond cruise ship. So Japan, in its country, has maybe 100 and some confirmed. Um, the U.S. now has 54 confirmed. Um, so there was a thing. Let me see. So there was I took a screenshot of it. So this was like the live, this was a live feed. It was earlier this morning. Um, and it was showing that these were the 10 most affected places. So we've got China, of course, with 78,000 cases and 2,700 deaths. And then we have South Korea with 1,100 cases and 11 deaths. And then Diamond Princess, like they don't even say they separated out Japan. Japan still has a high number, but not as high as it would if that Diamond cruise ship wasn't there. That's right. Whatever. So they separated it out. So Diamond Princess has 691 cases, and 4 of the deaths in Japan are from Diamond Princess. And then Italy has 323 and 11 deaths. and then Japan has 159 with one death. And then you look, Iran, Singapore, Hong Kong, United States, and Thailand are all the next highest up. It's not going to do the top 10. But you look at these bottom five, and they're not quite to 100. Iran and Singapore are almost there. Hong Kong, once again, most of these you can understand. Hong Kong and Japan, a lot of the Chinese live in obviously in Hong Kong, in Japan, and then for Spring Festival came here, whatever. So I mean, because of their proximity, and of course Hong Kong is China, in China, so because of the proximities of it, and Hong Kong has closed its borders. I don't know when. The interesting thing is, I don't know when anything is going to return to normal. So rumor has it, and it's strictly rumor. We have not heard anything official in any way, shape, or form. The last thing that we heard regarding my company itself is that we could officially return to our centers to work on March 2nd. So next week. And I'm going to want to try to go in a day or two so I can get some stuff organized and set up. Rumor has it classes begin March 2nd with the primary schools. And then we see that training centers are supposed to be able to start on March 16th doing training classes again. The thing of it is, the rumor mill as it churns outside is that schools will not start again till May. And those are just rumors. There's absolutely nothing substantiating that. Shanghai's cases are not horribly high, but they're also not horribly low. So if we look at, there's 65 confirmed and 3 deaths. And confirmed is like still confirmed. There were 336 originally, but 65 is the number of actively confirmed cases. So we're at an 80% recovery rate, which is really good. The problem is, the reason that South Korea has the numbers it has is because of that outbreak at a church. Knowing this, would China, and even with numbers low like Shanghai has, will China opt to keep classes and buildings and big gatherings closed to prevent an outbreak like South Korea is experiencing? Or will they just believe that masks will be worn, hands will be washed? We're talking about children here. Okay? So, what is the Chinese government going to do? And that's the big thing. You have to wonder if, because of the South Korea outbreak, if we ended up with more reason to keep public assemblies closed longer, as opposed to if the South Korea outbreak had not happened. But then there is everything else that is linked to what is happening with everything being closed, especially in the regions that are highly affected, where literally everything is closed. I mean, except for like the barest of necessities, like make sure you have groceries and food and medical services and that kind of thing. We're already seeing people struggling to pay their rent. We're seeing schools dabbling with not paying, and their employees, and if you look at, even though China says that they have to pay, there's things like they said, yes, we have to pay you your full salary for February, but we don't have to pay you after that. We could just pay half salaries. And if you look at things like, first of all, expats, we're not necessarily the priority, and that's understandable. Second of all, it's going to be extremely hard with a language barrier, especially if you don't speak Chinese, and most of us do not. Especially at a level to legally battle somebody. And the thing is with all of this stuff is that every contract you sign in China, it pointedly says that the Chinese version, it has greater standing than the translated version. So even though maybe your English version said blah, 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 but it was a nuance in the Chinese version that actually said, no, they can deny you pay for such and such a reason, you have to follow the Chinese version. But then you also have to look at, even if an expat decided to fight anything, how soon would they actually get their money, and how much money would be lost in the fight? So there's some things that go on there. But we're not just looking at the expats. Look at these small businesses that have stayed closed. Look at people that work for places such as Walt Disney Shanghai or any of the downtown Disney shops. Because while Disneyland Shanghai and Hong Kong Disneyland are probably doing the exact same thing that Disney English is doing, whereas they are actually paying you your salary. And I don't know, because the parks are different. I don't know how all of that works, and I'm not going to presume. The shops in downtown Disney or in Disneytown are closed. So like Cheesecake Factory, Pandora. I mean, I don't know if Pandora really is going to struggle with that closed. Pandora makes a lot of money. A lot of the shops in Disneytown are high-end shops. But like Build-A-Bear's down there. I don't shop a lot down there. I do Lego. Lego's down there. A lot of clothing, and there's like luggage shops, and there's Innisfree and all that. I don't even know if I said that right. But there's a lot of upscale shops. So would they really? I don't know. But you're still looking at paying employees that aren't working for a location that is not opening or is not open and may not be reopened. So like with these things like Pandora, they have random stores throughout Shanghai. So they may have their employees working at different shops. So they're still working to get their pay. But Shanghai Disneyland has way too many employees to filter them out to Disney stores. There's 2 Disney stores in China, in Shanghai. So I don't know. I don't know how things are working. But we're looking at if China does not allow schools to reopen in March. I'm not going to go all the way to May. In March. Because they are actually, it is rumored, once again rumors, that we're going to see another surge in April. And that's when we're going to finally be moving past this. I don't know. I don't know anything. But if China leaves public schools closed until, public and private schools closed until through March, till April. And they say, okay, new opening date is April. Training centers are secondary, which means we will be closed after that. So they would basically say, and training centers can start teaching again mid-April, like they did now for us, mid-March. The thing of it is, while public schools can teach online, we, training centers, are not allowed to. So we cannot have our lessons online like VipKid does. We'd have to just... we have to teach in person. They're not allowing us to do online trainings. We can send out little videos, but we can't do like a full class, if that makes sense. So, I mean, there's just things. There's so much to consider. If Disney English finds out, for instance, that they are not going to open till May, consider the people that were supposed to come on people were supposed to show up here in Shanghai on February 4th. New foreign trainers. That's not happening. Obviously, that didn't happen. They've been delayed indefinitely. Now, when I came to China, I was delayed 2 weeks, and that was death. I was on vacation when I found out, so I had to call my full-time job, I'd already quit. You can't go back to that. It's government. So I had to call the part-time job I had at the time. I was a night auditor, and I'd already trained my replacement. If they had a position for me, they let me work days, which was death. Prefer the night audit job 100%. I loved the night audit job there. I loved it. But I had a job I could do for 2 weeks before I moved. I can't even imagine these people that were planning to leave February 4th, and now their whole future is in limbo, especially when you consider that visas are limited. Now, I know China's going to allow some exceptions, but you apply for your visa, you have like 30 days to get into China and apply for your work visa and get that processed. I can't even imagine what those waiting to come here are feeling, where they are, what they're experiencing. I don't know how many will back out because you got to move on with your life. If this is going to fall through, what are you going to do? And like I mentioned, my apartment cannot lease to new tenants. So at this point, they're not allowed to bring in new people. So they have an insane amount of vacancies, and they're not going to be able to fill them right now. And I don't know how many others are like that. So if we find out we cannot, here are the options. One, Disney will either directly talk to each of us, because corporate is open. So they may say, okay, we're going to schedule a time, you come in. And they may say, here are your options. You can work in the center doing this, 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 and this. See, feasibly what I would do, this is me, I would offer people, here's your option. You go into the center. You're going to follow these rules of wearing your mask, using hand sanitizer, keeping your hand clean, limiting contact, all of that. And we are going to revamp our education program. We are going to step it up a notch. We're going to improve our... Now, we're doing that at home a little bit. We're like doing quality control checks on stuff and stuff. But I'm talking about legitimately, they've talked about changing things around. And this would be a time to just... You'd have all these FTs and different centers working on it with different input and just do a massive revamping. Even if it isn't launched by the time schools we're back open. But at least you'd be moving forward with that. So I'd say that's your first option. Your second option is if you're not confident or comfortable with that, you can go into the center. You can help organize the classrooms, clean up the realia rooms, do inventories, organize flashcards, basically, yeah, administrative things, you know. Or three, you can go home. And what we will do is we will give you will be paid, you've been paid your February salary. We will give you March salary now. Or we'll cancel your visa, give you March salary so you can fly home. That's what I would do if it was closed till like May or indefinitely, or we had no clue. But Disney could very well say, look, we're shutting down Disney English for a year. But that would really mess up a lot of lives. And I don't really feel like Disney's that kind of company, because they'd have to relaunch. And that would be a lot harder than trying to keep some people here and have them doing other tasks while they wait for the time for Disney to reopen. Other problem is that contracts are expiring. Almost every month a contract expires. So if we cannot bring in new FTs, and FTs, we have an onboarding of 2 weeks or so before we can go live. I think we can't go live for a month. We have onboarding for like 2 weeks, but we can't officially teach until our visa, our work visa, has gone through the entire process. Now, there's going to be such backups with visas, because there's people that their visas are, just all this stuff that's going on is causing all these issues. And there's just going to be a lot for them to deal with. So our new visa is going to be a priority. I kind of doubt it. Like new incoming visas, as opposed to like visas that are already here. And need to be renewed. So let's assume that let's even assume that they do the March date. Let's assume that schools start March 2nd. We don't hear anything else. Disney English classes start March 16th. A lot of the FTs are still out of the country. And I don't know how many are going to be willing to return, because they'd have to come back no later than March 2nd. Because they have to do the 14-day quarantine. And they're going to come back to centers that are like half full of people. In the meantime, we've had contracts expire. And other people have as well. So other people that were going to finish out a term or whatever are going to... So these contracts are going to expire and or have expired. And we did not finish out the term. A lot of our students aren't going to remember what we taught them. So feasibly, when we come back on the 16th, it shouldn't be like, let's just take off where we left off. 16th should be a review week. Like we should just review the content. It should just be a review week, kind of like a week 6, but without the test. So we should have a review week and then launch into, here we go, let's get back to normal. It's going to be interesting. So even if we have the March 2nd they'd still have to arrange for these people to show up, which means that they will probably not show up till April, which means that they will not go live till May. And this is all assuming classes start when the Chinese government last said they were going to start, that flights are allowed to start happening and people are allowed to start coming in. That also does not factor in the 14-day quarantine, which I don't know if, I think everybody that flies into China has to do. So that means that these people that fly into China to become foreign trainers here will have to be quarantined in their hotel for 14 days before they can start onboarding. Now, the beginning of onboarding is that we meet up like the second day we're here and we go get our medical stuff done, and then we go get our visas. They send off our paperwork and blah, 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 blah. And then we start going through our training. That would be put off for 2 weeks. The hotel is for 30 days, not even a full month. And they have to be looking for a apartment. They have to, of course, their visa is in the process of being created. So ideally, but I think you need that medical clearance. So I don't know if they'd still be able to do that even with the 14-day quarantine. I don't know if they'd be able to get the medical check, because I think you need that. I don't know all the process. I just know that one difference would be that we usually spent the last 2 weeks of that month before we could go live in our centers, and that would not happen. It would probably be like a combination of like training at headquarters for the last 2 weeks and then training in your center one or so days a week. But the point in case is there's going to be gaps that need to be filled, and there's not going to be enough trainers to fill them. Disney apparently went through this before we got here, and we were finally getting to a place in Disney where there wasn't that much of a shortage. But it looks like we might be heading back to a shortage. And this is all hypothetical. So this is just my hypotheticals on where we're going to be. Now, on a personal note, before I scroll through this really quick and wrap this up, as we all know, we're coming on a presidential election. I've got to get my absentee ballot thing done. And the thing is, I have made the decision, but I don't know how it's going to play out, and I'm praying about it, that if Bernie Sanders wins, I'm not coming back to the U.S. I'll come back to visit and stuff, and I don't know if I'll stay in China. I'm actually kind of leaning toward going to maybe Europe or something, but I won't come back because he's a socialist, and I just don't want to experience all the chaos that's going to come if he wins. The problem with that is if I did say I was going to stay in China, I have to let him know by October. So I could maybe say at this point, like if Bernie Sanders is a nominee and it looks like he's going to maybe possibly win, I doubt he'll win, but I'm just saying. At this point I'm tentatively saying yes, but I'm not going to sign the contract until November and the election results are in. That's probably what I'll do. But that's all dependent on what God says. So I'm really going to be praying to see where God wants me to go, because oddly enough, that one of the classes I'm finishing up right now at my seminary, I was like, you know what, God, I don't know if I'm supposed to go back to New Mexico and retire. I don't know what you want. And I'm not saying that I'm going to pull out my retirement, because I'm not an idiot. I'm going to leave it there unless God tells me something obvious about it, and he never has ever told me to pull my retirement. But I don't know if that's exactly where he wants me right now. So I'm just praying about it, and all I know is that people threatened to leave if Trump won. I've already left. So if Bernie wins, I'm just not going to go back till he's not president anymore. And even then, I may not go back until like everything is settled, because I'm not necessarily saying that America is going to become a socialist country. I just believe that there's going to be a whole crap load of chaos and an increase in taxes and a whole bunch of other stuff that's just going to make life really hard for people. But anyway, God is in control, and I'm not afraid. But let me just scroll through this real quick. Um, First cases: Algeria, Switzerland, Croatia, Austria. Uh, 11 deaths. Um, Elderly patients already had preconditions. That seems to be mostly the thing. Not always, but mostly. So the health minister is one of those infected. But look, they're not wearing masks. Like, that's the thing. If one of those dudes is the health minister, unless this is a picture before he got sick, but if he's at a press conference right now saying, you know what, I have the coronavirus, and I shouldn't say that, but if he's at the press conference, yeah, look, it says he coughed occasionally and appeared sweating during a press conference. So he basically is infecting everybody else. Okay, moving on. That's so bad. Ay, okay. South Korea's jump. Trace back to that church. It says that the Tokyo Olympics are likely to be canceled if the outbreak is not controlled by May. And guys, I had so much travel planned. Like I said, I was gonna go to Hong Kong or Tokyo for Chinese New Year, and then I was thinking, when this thing was, I wasn't realizing how big this was. I was like, well, I'll go to Hong Kong in April, then I'll go to Tokyo and Hong Kong in October. I'll go to Beijing. I'll look up some stuff. Go to Beijing at a good time to go to Beijing. And look at this. Like, I don't know. I'm really feeling like the April Hong Kong thing's not going to happen. I want to go to both in October to see their Halloween stuff, so I might just do that anyway. It expects it to spread to the U.S. And part of that is, and once again, I'm not advocating, and plus it's already out of China regardless, but I'm not advocating to, like, there being no options to leave China, but they're still letting flights out of China. So, and in. San Francisco declare a state of emergency. There are 0 confirmed cases. The global picture. And you know, I chuckled, but honestly, good for you, San Francisco, because I think it's better to be hyper vigilant in this case than not. And I'm not gonna. I don't know. Canary Island Hotel is under quarantine. And they have a vaccine ready for clinical trials. And then, you know, people are believing that this was cooked up in a lab and it got out. I really don't know, guys. Anything is possible. We all know that multiple countries dabble with biological warfare. There's not, none of us are ignorant of that. Nope, Mission Impossible 7 is not being filmed. 30 cruises are canceled. All Japan and South Korea visitors. So see, look, this is where they're getting it. The thing about schools staying closed, because Hong Kong has closed their schools until after April. And they're wondering if Shanghai is going to do the same thing. I mean, not Shanghai, but China is going to do the same thing. And like we said, at this point, we don't know anything. However, Hong Kong does not have the outbreak that China does. And if Hong Kong is doing that, I'm not saying China's going to follow suit. But that is a temperature gauge right there that we might possibly be. And honestly, like I said, if you look at what just happened in South Korea, if you honestly look at that outbreak from a General Assembly gathering of a large group of people causing an outbreak like that in a matter of days, this is like less than a week. Just this explosion. That's another temperature gauge. Did you know that table tennis is the sport of China? One of my learners told me that. I was like, really? I didn't know that. See, this one still says. Oh no, see, online. Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't know. And it's interesting that I'm in this situation because my contract ended on December 31st. And I had already decided, like I said, that I was going to stay in China 2 years. So none of this is like a fluky thing. It's just really interesting to be here. I've never experienced anything like this in all of my life. The strangest thing for me is sitting at home, working from home. And it's really telling because I'm like, as much as I look forward to retirement, I will have to make sure I'm doing something because this is ridiculous. And I asked my LLD, I listed a whole bunch of tasks. He's like, well, why don't you pick one? I'm like, honestly, dude, I said, some of the other FTs have picked some of the tasks I listed. Just assign me whatever's left because I don't feel like one task is really worth Disney paying me. Just working on one task. In addition to like parent cares and like the videos they have us work on every week, which by the way, that's what's going to be next. I am going to share two of the videos. One, we had a minute to talk about our hometown where we grew. That's not enough time. So all I really talked about were my pets that are there. I talked about my dogs. I didn't talk about the cat. And I talked about the skies because New Mexico has amazing skies and amazing air. And the fact that it's got both desert and winter and mountains, and the fact that we get all 4 seasons, and that there is Native American and Hispanic culture there. That's really it. Because a minute goes by really quickly. So I'm going to include that. Then I'm going to go ahead and include one of the training videos I did that they didn't ask for, but I created, and it's longer than a minute. So I don't know if they'll ever use it, but it's all about creating sentences. I'm just going to throw those in there for you. But that's my update, and I'm going to upload these to YouTube today. And as I said, I did do a video a week ago. I don't think that video will ever see the light of day because I felt like I was really irrelevant and random. And I'm always random, but I just felt that one was a bit more. But there you go. Hello everybody, it's Teacher Julie, and I'm going to talk to you really briefly about my home in America. I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and there I have my 2 dogs, my Dalmatian, Lady Ariel, and my poodle, Merci Beaucoup. So my dogs, I miss them horribly, but hopefully I will be able to see them both again very soon, my dogs. One of the things Santa Fe is very famous for is their skies. We have beautiful skies in New Mexico. Especially in Santa Fe. So we also have mountains and deserts. So it goes anywhere. You could have really dry climate or you could have really moist climate. New Mexico gets all 4 of its seasons, and we also get snow. So New Mexico is a beautiful place to live, and it has a lot of Spanish and Native American culture in it. So if you ever get a chance, please visit. All right, parents, so what you're going to want to do is go to the stories in the back of your book, and then you're going to have your learner read, and on each page or each set of pages, you're going to pick a sentence, and you're going to write that sentence out on paper. So what you want to do is you want to write each word out, no punctuation, and then you're going to want to cut them out. You're going to want to create a different color sheet of punctuation, and you're going to want to cut those out as well. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have the learner recreate the sentence. Keep doing that through the whole story, and eventually you will have enough words that your learner can create their own sentences to work on their reading and their writing. You can also do the vocabulary from the previous weeks and add that to the stack of words. You can write out target structure sentences and questions and have your learners create their own stories and responses. You can also create some blank sheets, so if they need to create a word to make a sentence work, they can create their own sentences.